take away from him. So Mr. John Henry is in the audience. If he wants to head on up now, we can.
Come on, John. Let's give it up for John.
Oh.
Let's give a big round of applause. He is one of the key influencers for Cadillac. And so I know Lexus and John will talk about the relationship and how that relationship was formed, which would be key because I know so many people are looking to form relationships with corporations.
Hi,
so talk about some of those nuances of why it works and what makes it work. So let me get those hugs. John?
Hey, brother. How are you? Check. Is this thing on? Can you guys hear me all right? How you guys feeling? All right. Check. Can you guys turn my mic up? Is that possible? Can audio turn my mic up just a little bit?
John Household. He also is one of the founders of Harlem Capital, and he's just an all-around entrepreneur that's doing his thing, millennial. So I'll let John go ahead and introduce himself, and then we'll get into a discussion with John as well.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. It's a pleasure to be here. So just a quick background context. How many of you guys have come across even a single piece of my content? Hands up. Yayo. Thank you guys, appreciate you. So apologies to those who know, but for those who don't, I would say the most formative thing about my upbringing is being the very proud son of immigrant parents. I think before we wear our professional titles that we all have in the room, real estate broker, insurance agent, marketer, cosmetics, what have you, I think there's, even in branding as we'll discuss, there's so many elements of strategies and tactics, but I'm a firm believer that underneath all that, at your core, who you are as a person is what should inform what you do, how you approach interactions and so forth. So anyway, I say that to say that that's my DNA, coming up with my mom selling super soakers in the park on a hot summer night, and my pops pressing garments for 40 cents a piece in hot New York City summers, driving gypsy cabs and so forth. And so anyway, that is kind of the DNA that was here, and I was just working dead-end jobs, and I always knew I wanted to pop somehow, and it didn't matter to me what it was gonna be. And I don't know about y'all, how many of you guys are business owners? Hands up. Awesome. I love that. Now, I don't know how many of you guys that are in the audience working your first business. I wasn't particularly passionate about my first business. I was cleaning people's dirty underwear for a living, right? Like I had an on-demand dry cleaner cleaning like laundry, but what I was passionate about was creating a framework by which I can live and, base off of exactly, the measure of my own effort. Like I felt like I was in the workplace and I didn't want to be defined by someone else's value of me. Hey, your value's worth X. I was like, no, you know what? I might make less out in the real world, but I want to define my own time. And so that was my foray into this world. Started that first business, built it, have since done a number of things, as well as getting to work with Cadillac.
So let's talk about that first business. You're being very humble because you sold your first business for $1 million.
Thank you.
So let's talk about how important it was for you to build a brand, and how did you know exactly how much money, how much equity you had to create in order to sell your business?
Yeah, I'll say this. So when I first started, I didn't know really any of the technical terms that I know now. I didn't even know the word entrepreneur, if I'm to be perfectly honest. I didn't know about brand. I didn't know about any of this stuff. What I knew was that I had to help my mom and dad out. What I knew was that every week, there was stress in the household. And what I knew was that I didn't want that for my family. And what I knew also was that the framework that existed out there that I could see with my own two eyes, i.e., the standard conventional path, it just didn't feel like the outcome was meaningful enough to get our family out of the situation that we were in.
Right.
And so, do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you feel where I'm coming from? And so that to me is brand. And I dropped recently Brand isn't a logo. It's a feeling. Like, so many people have it twisted on brand. And you guys think that if you get a logo design and you get some font and you get a website and you throw it up, that you got a brand. Brand is how someone feels about you, consistently, collectively over time. And anytime someone associates you with that feeling, the measure of that, that's what we call brand equity. Right? And so anytime someone associates you with a feeling and they put a penny in that jar, you're building your brand equity, penny by penny, interaction by interaction, one to one. And so that's how I've approached my career. And it's no damn wonder why I'm able to resonate in a world where influencers are concerned about likes and comments and gaming the system and automated engagement. It's, can you sit here and evoke a feeling?
Yeah.
And if you could do that, your brand will be all right.
Yeah. So let's stay right there for a second and also talk about more of the things that are important in building a brand. What would you suggest to the UYPs about the importance of creating that equity and building that brand?
It's a good question. Look, your brand, and let's demystify that word. To me, it just means, we talked about it, that feeling, but to me, it's when you're in the conversation when you're not in the room. Cadillac has discussions, eBay, Samsung, any one of these multinational brands have constant discussions around where they want to deploy their resources and who they're going to recruit as the best messenger to help them further their missions. And guess what? These conversations are being had with you not in the room.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you can be in the room if you're fortunate, but most of the time, you are not in the room. And when Alexis Kerr, who's managing multicultural now at Cadillac, is at the table and she's brainstorming who's going to be the best fit for this, if you're not coming up top 5, you don't have the brand in that particular category. Can you, doing what you're doing, you know, young professionals, business owners, what have you, if you're not coming up top 5, you need to fix the equation. There's a variable that needs to be fixed. And so for me, it's either you're in a category that's way too broad, you're trying to boil the ocean. Think about it. Startups, I don't know about y'all, but I got limited resources. I ain't had no friends and family. People say I raise a friends and family round. I was like, yo, what friends and what family could write me a $10,000 check, $20,000 check? And so if a startup or a young professional or what have you is strapped with resources to begin with, then you better make sure that you are in small, easy to cover territory. So that when Alexis says, hey, I want a, you know, diverse financial advisor, you know, I need a black woman financial advisor that's gonna meet my needs at an event like this, who do I go to? Boom! You come up first. That's brand. And that's why it's important to build that brand so you can position yourself with these companies that are operating at scale so you can further your message through them.
So sticking with the brand, partnering with companies, there has to be a good fit, right? So where do you think people go wrong when they want to partner with companies? And then we'll kick it back to Alexis.
Yeah, because I actually would love to hear Alexis' take on this. Because we have, you know, we have the opportunity now to hear from a decision maker at, you know, a legacy brand and how she thinks. I would love to hear what you feel like most people get wrong when they approach you. Because
I think there's a number of things. I think the first thing is that people feel like they have to be everything. It's not possible to be everything. You can be 2 to 3 things, and I think that's the first time you and I talked. I was like, okay, what are your top 3 things?
Yeah, right.
You know, what are the top three things that a mentor always told me that you love doing, that you're really good at, and then that you're passionate about? Because you need that. You need all 3 really to be successful. So then when you boil it down to these are the top 3 things, and then it's about us having a conversation about what are my needs and then what are your wants. Mm-hmm. I think so when you get that balance, that's when the kind of magic happens. So it was like, okay, these are the needs that I have as a brand, this is what I'm looking for, this is kind of my budget, this is what I'm thinking, and then like what are you working on? I think the other piece is that not enough people talk about what are you working on, because I don't want to just have this conversation with John Henry here and then maybe we see him in season 2 or 3, or we see him, you know, with another brand working. I want us to have that authentic, hey John, I'm thinking about doing this with the YPs. You know, my contract with you is XYZ, let's do something that engages the community. So for me as a brand, I'm not just looking for transactional pieces, I want it to be a relationship, and that's how it's further. So when I have something that John's a perfect fit for, like today it works, but John can call me if he's in LA and is like, hey, I'm getting ready to do XYZ, you know, this convention, can I get a car for a week, or can I get a car for 2 weeks? So when the relationship is really balanced, like any relationship, that's where the magic starts to happen. And then that's where he's saying, I'm in this room that you're not in, Cadillac, or you're not being considered as a brand. Hey, think about this, Alexis. Or I'm working on this business venture. That aligns with your brand. Think about that. And so it's really, you know, for me as a brand, how much more can I get out of John? So I'm in other places that he's in, that he's thinking about us. And then the same for him, you know, I'm in rooms that he's not in. And then how can I bring his name up how many times where it sticks, and then, you know, it's been sticking lately.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. But I want to build on that because that's an interesting point. Notice Alexis talked about, and this is one thing that I had to kind of get comfortable with and start really to understand the depth to it. But behind any organization are really just people, right? And Alexis has a job to do. And every day she shows up and she's constantly thinking about, you know, the responsibilities and the roles, and there's motivations that she has, right? And there's success metrics that she has. And so it has been kind of interesting because she has made it a two-way street where it's not like, hey, what's where is Cadillac that I want to be? It's all, she also has been good about letting me know, hey, you're in rooms, understand, like she got me to understand the power of our journey. And I don't know about y'all, but like I think I just slept on that because I just inherently felt like, you know, my perspective wasn't that valuable. But then you realize, okay, you're in spaces that other folks aren't, and people value those spaces that you're in. And let's not get it twisted, there is a ton of macro pressure on corporates to get more diverse. And they can't do that shit authentically themselves alone, which means they need messengers, which means there's this constant, you know, looking for whom organically speaks to, you know, our desired audience. And so when you can flip the switch and understand that you just inherently, your walk and your talk has value into it, and when you can lean into that, then you're building the leverage, because then you're not going to a brand, you know, with, you know, no cards up your sleeves. You can control your own distribution channels, your own audiences that follow you wherever you go across a number of the biggest platforms. And I firmly believe in 2017, there was the first year that there was more money spent on digital than traditional TV, print, radio. And guess what? It ain't ever going back. It's gonna continue shifting digital. And as it shifts digital, it makes its way to certain homes first. Number one is YouTube pre-roll ads. You know those really annoying 5-second ads that you can't skip? There's a reason advertisers like those, because you can't skip them. So it's like guaranteed impressions, right? Then there's Facebook, and you know, then there's influencers. And it's a really interesting time to be black and brown and be just authentic enough. You can't be too hood. You can't be too hood. You gotta be just authentic enough, but also, you know your stuff. And if you can sit in that sweet spot, you can open up a world of opportunities for yourself.
And I think that's a good point. You know, people sometimes get it twisted, like I can't be myself. It's like there's certain parts in a relationship, at work, none of us really can be 100% of who we are at home. So you're out in public. And so when you're out in public, you need to act a certain way, you know, just basic guardrails. And I think sometimes people lose that piece in you're working with a brand. So in working with a brand, there's some basic guardrails. And I think we also talked about, Portia and I, when you have an authentic relationship and connection, you can say, hey, you might have got out of bounds on here. Let me send a quick text, or let's have a quick discussion about something that maybe someone wasn't thinking. And so people also, just like brands, are forgiving as well. So I think you don't have to be perfect. But you do have to apologize when you're wrong, you have to make corrections, and then you have to do it swiftly. Yeah. So I'll also say none of branding relationships is perfect. You can think of a number of brands who have, lost their way and then pulled back, got with the right influencers to kind of pull things together. And so, and no influencer either is perfect. And so I think having a relationship beyond just the transaction is important, so that when you see someone off the guardrails, you don't say, well, I'm not going to work with them anymore. Right. They get on a commercial shoot, they just had a bad day, or they just got some bad news, and then that could ruin a contract that was multi-year, or that could, one picture could ruin something that's a full long-term relationship. So the other piece is saying that if you mess up, you want to have an authentic relationship, a good relationship where you can send a text and say, hey, I made a mistake there, or let me pull that back, or let me adjust. And I think that's the importance. I mean, if I leave you with nothing today, it's make sure you really connect, not just take people's money and pay people. Connect with them, because when you connect, then they'll make the call. They'll go the extra mile. They will advocate on your behalf. They will spread things out and help to make sure you stay on, within the guardrails. I think that's important, and just your thoughts about that too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alexis, for that.
Yeah, I thought that was it.
And so earlier we brought up Daniel and Lester. We want to give Lester the opportunity to come back to the stage and talk about his personal brand as well. Lester?
Welcome.
Thank you. A good portion. Wow, I feel important.
So Lester, as a black man, share how you built your personal brand.
I think going off of what was said, the importance of relationships and mentoring. I work in a field that there are not a lot of African-American men that are in. So again, there is pressure, but at the same time, you have to deliver. So again, having those mentors and having those conversations and understanding what my job is, and again, what the legacy I want to leave in the role, those are all really important things that I kind of carry each day. I have to stand out amongst my peers and my colleagues, and then obviously the pressure of being an African-American man, so.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now we're going to take some questions from the audience, and Daniel here is going to make sure that your questions are heard. So if you have a question, you can line up in the middle of the room and ask a question to John Henry, Alexis Carr, or Lester Booker. Questions?
Come on, y'all, don't be shy. I know there's some good questions in here.
Got a president in the back.
Michael McCoy, President of Urban League Greater Richmond Young Professionals. Question to John. As you all scout potential startups to invest in, what are some of the biggest metrics that you all target?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So some of you guys may know around Harlem Capital, we invest in women and minority-owned businesses, specifically, exclusively, only. And look, there's a lot of metrics to get into, but in a nutshell, there's a lot of talk about product market fit. Is this product fit this market? But we really look a lot at founder product fit. So are you the right person or team to be tackling this problem? And I think people really underestimate the importance of that. Like everyone's trying to be a tech team now. Tech or this or that, but like, is that really your DNA? Because you'd be better suited leaning into creative if you come from a design background and stop trying to front like you're tech and just lean into what you do. You'd be better suited to do that, actually, and bring out the strengths in that. And so when you have a founder and a founding team that really has a self-awareness around what their core skills are, and they adapt that to what they're trying to do, it's a lot more attractive for investment because you know that they can go the distance.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Next question.
Hello, my name is Kamari Ixtabarbary. I'm a member of the Urban League of Essex County Young Professionals. Thank you all for coming today. So I have a day job as a software engineer, and the side hustle as the owner of 2 franchise fitness studios, which were Black founded and all Black and brown owned. So
Good for you.
Thank you. So we're in a unique space where we market typically and cater to more niche, higher income, upscale community, various age ranges, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to target and market several, target groups. So like for the, I'll say like the 22 to 38 range, everything's really good on like just social media promoting posts. But I'm trying to figure out how to target then that kind of next age range where really like the wealth starts to build in that 40s to 50s range. So like I'm kind of torn between like,
Gotcha.
Should I focus more on print or try to get creative with digital, but in a different avenue? We use Google AdSense and Waze mapping and all that. So still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Everything works. Everything can work, right? Like you can still crush it on, sending flyers. There's a certain conversion rate. It's probably at 1%, and so if you mail out thousands of mailers, you can expect a 1% return. But if you think about it, for me, I really love using content as a way to develop people's emotional connection with your brand. Now, here's the thing, though. There's a catch-22. It's very long tail. And when I started producing content, people were like, "Oh, John, what's the ROI on this video?" I'm like, I don't know, but I don't measure it that way. Like I measure that I'm starting to connect with folks, and now years and years later, there's not, a city that I go to where folks don't already consume my content and have an understanding of who I am and what I'm about. And so I firmly believe, by the way, that as these digital platforms reach maturity, more and more consumption will shift to organic content consumption. And so if you build a model around paid ads, you'll only have the eyeballs as long as you're spending on it. But if you build an audience around and a customer base around organic content creation and consumption, that is there to stay, right? And right now, LinkedIn actually has the highest organic reach. I drop a video on LinkedIn and get 4 to 5x the organic reach that I get on Instagram, right? And so it's like there's always a medium that's trying to pop. And when they're trying to pop, they always make it easy for people to produce and share on these platforms because they want to capture market share. So if I were you, I would be building and producing content around conversations that your community cares about. In the fitness, in the Black and brown community, what does that look like? What are some of the challenges? And I get it, you're trying to bring in sales in the short term, but if you can allocate just enough resources to get some of that conversation going in the next 12 to 18 months, you'll see an increase in your bottom line as a result of connecting with more people.
Okay, thank you. And also, I work in Soho, so I would love to connect with you back in New York City.
Hey, let's do it. Thank you.
Great advice. Next question.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Stubbs. I'm from the New York Urban League Young Professionals and proud Harlemite. So,
Hey, okay.
Yes, sir. So, quick question. So, of course, I'm in corporate America, and there a lot of times there's this keyword. They use the word brand. Your manager or director or partner may talk to you about your personal brand. But a lot of times I find out that actually means, this is the way we see you. This is what we perceive you to be. And so a lot of times you may try to make those adjustments and those corrections, but you find yourself a lot of times tailoring your career or tailoring your experience at that firm to meet someone else's maybe false expectations or faulty preconceived notions, to the point where it becomes a distraction to actually being productive and creative and the reason why you were hired in the first place. So I'm trying to think about what's the balance between trying to be productive, creative, and truly authentic, and living up to maybe someone's faulty preconceived notions, which they call a brand or expectation of you.
So
Alexis,
That's definitely Alexis. Yeah. That's definitely Alexis.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I'll just go back to most recently this week I had this discussion with a leader of mine who said, now you're doing culture, you're going to do music, and you're going to do some other social content, how we engage with communities in addition to my job. And I had a discussion with my mom after work, and she was like, hey, you was built for this. This is who you you are. You know, I don't show up today wearing an African print. If you look at my Instagram and my YouTube and whatever, this is who I am. I began starting and connecting with civic organizations and doing this kind of work because I'm passionate about that. I just happen to have a role now building on the foundations of where I began, what I began, the things that are important to me, seeing myself in advertisements, seeing ourselves in these type of conversations, wanting to hear back from when I was in my 20s and early 30s from people who are in industry doing well. So I'm just giving back today. So in that format, it just happens to be this multicultural marketing manager position, which has all of this breadth and depth. So I say that to say every day, before I had this job, I was showing up in all of this fabulousness and glory. Because it was who I am, and yes, people make comments about, you know, you're so colorful. And you know, and we have all heard a number of those comments, but it's okay, you know, so I can either decide, as one of my Nigerian friends said, you know, I came from Nigeria to the US, so I can either you know, listen to all of this and take it personal, or I can kind of get with the program. And so there's, you know, guardrails when you work in corporate America, things that you know, things that you ignore. So for me, it's about, you know, how can I be my authentic self, show up, be comfortable, keep myself sane first. Because if I'm not whole, then yes, I'm throwing over desk, and every day it's a different comment. Right. You know, so, and then imagine the comments you hear from your peers that look like you. And so if every day I'm reactionary to every single thing I hear, I won't be sane. And so with that, I know who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am. You know, and that's okay. And so when you get in those rooms and when you're not in those rooms, yeah, I can show up every day as myself. I'm not hassled, I'm not frustrated, I'm not uncomfortable, because I am who I am. I'm 5'11" in all this glory. You get it? I'm serving it every day. And so, you know, other than that, you'll be flippant, because today one manager wants this, tomorrow somebody thinks you should dress like this, today you got an accent, tomorrow you don't. So you'll be nuts. So I'm showing up. Here I am. You know, and this too shall pass. You know, it passes. People change, and you don't even have to change. People change their mindsets, their positions. So part of it is you just making sure you're steadfast, you're rooted like a tree, and that you're gonna waver because you're listening. Maybe you adjust a little, but you're still a tree. So you're rooted. And so it's about what are you rooted in that resonates with you, your family, and how can you be still and know, and I'll leave the rest.
That's fire. Come on now. Come on now.
Yeah, and keep going. You know, the leaves may fall off because it's seasonal, but you're still a tree. You're not moving.
It's gotta work.
It's gotta
work.
Come on now.
That's all I'm like.
That was fire.
Hello everyone, Liz Walker, the YP chapter president for the Eastern Mass Urban League. And John, I'm a huge fan, I've been following you for a long time.
Thank you.
My question is, well, I'm essentially looking to start a consulting business that's more in alignment with my passions. And so as someone who started a business, basically in our age group, what are some recommendations that you have, or maybe pitfalls that we should avoid in terms of maintaining a good work-life balance, especially when our personal and our professional really start to blend together?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. And my relationship with this work-life balance thing is interesting because I learned that balance doesn't necessarily mean equal harmony. It just means, what do you need in this moment of your life? And when I was starting, right, like whatever you take on is only going to grow as much attention as you give it. And so I personally was not looking to be a lifestyle entrepreneur, like just casually kind of having this business going, you know, like I wanted to grow. I'm looking for impact. And so the work-life balance that I needed at that time was probably 99% work, 1% chilling, right? But that shifts as you go on, as your career changes. You know, I have mentors now, I've been retired for 20 years, and you know, they take their time and they make investments and they're at a different place. So I think for you, it's reverse engineering what you're looking to get to and being really self-aware around the fact that starting something is ridiculously hard, and you're competing with teams that have 3 times the amount of resources. So if you're real with yourself, in order to get off the ground, it takes an enormous amount of work in the beginning. And I mean quality hours of work, and making your dollars stretch, and being tactical about what you do, and doing things that don't scale, and taking all those meetings and shaking hands and interacting with audience at 1 a.m, all that kind of over-indexing eventually puts you in the position later on so that you can dedicate a little bit more time to leisure if you so feel to.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Danielle King, and I'm the president of the Los Angeles Urban League of Professionals. And regarding a conversation that I had at work, and you all mentioning being in the space, and as an ally, I have a question for Cadillac. What systems do you all have internally, but externally?
Yeah, so internally we have an employee resource group, which is fantastic. The group has actually helped me to educate me in this space because I wasn't a subject matter expert 5 months ago, but now I'm very clear on the gingerbread house and a number of things about how we should not only consider but look to speak to hear the community. And then the pictures are just an example of how we foster relationships. So this is not the first year that we've worked in the space and done activations in the community. But those people you see in these pictures, we really have relationships. And so we are working to not just transactionally have them show up, do a photo shoot, let them drive around in the Cadillac. For me, it's way beyond that. You know, it's more or less, where are they? What amazing thing. That lady, Anika, she is in many rooms that I will never be in. So Whoopi Goldberg gave her her grandmother's ring that she continues to wear. She was just on NBC a couple of weeks ago. She's also doing a documentary on Netflix. So she is globally doing a lot of things. She's worked with Nike. We've also helped to foster a stronger relationship with Spike Lee. So she just spoke at his annual block party for the 30th anniversary of Do the Right Thing. And so it has less to do with just using her imagery, which is absolutely fantastic and gorgeous, but more or less with connecting with her and letting her know that if she needs us, 1, we're here, 2, she was an absolute pleasure to work with. So on the set, I mean, she had some of the most engaging pictures. We used it not just in this LGBT plus activation, but we also did it in an I1 page takeover. So we used her content. So it goes far beyond her just being pigeonholed to, that's, you know, your sexual preferences, that's just a small part of who you are. That has nothing to do with how a brand is gonna engage you and see you. You're a person. And so for us, every one of our customers is a person. You just happen to be African American, Black, brown. You just happen to prefer a preference, one preference or another. You just happen to be tall or short. So for us, we're fostering these relationships. And for me, this is just the beginning of what we're gonna have and how we're going to explode in the community, where people understand that we hear them, we see them, and we want to connect with them. And then after you do that and capture the minds and hearts, then you can sell cars all day, every day. But first, you got to know that we see you, we hear you, and the anniversary was just the beginning. And we've already, in years past, have done work in the community. And for the second half of this year, we continue to be part of authentic engaging events in the community, especially in Detroit. So we've always done an event there, but now we're going to sponsor a bigger event, and it's a clinic, the Ruth Ellis Center, that provides not just care, but health care for people who have identified in a number of different ways. And so we're partnering with them to sponsor their 20th anniversary with Wanda Sykes. So there are a number of things. We can take this offline, and hopefully you see more online of the wonderful work that we're doing. But again, we see you, we hear you, and we know you, and we love you as well.
Yeah, and Lester can talk from a communications perspective as well on some of the external events that Cadillac does too.
Sure, and it's great because I work across all 4 of the brands. Cadillac is my favorite, Lex knows that. But I work across all of our brands in terms of diverse media opportunities, ensuring that African American, Asian, LGBT, Hispanic, and women are included in our drive programs, so our general market programs. We work with the teams and see, hey, there's an opportunity to include this person here. There's a space, let's include that person because we need to get that message out to those audiences because to Alexis's point, we care about all of our customers. From an internal perspective, I would say this year, I think we've had the best ever support from an LGBTQ perspective. It starts from the top. So again, our senior leadership, they have devoted time, they have devoted messaging internally to all of our employees about the importance of an inclusive culture, the importance of diversity. So it doesn't just start like on this kind of level, it has to start from the top and be cascaded down in terms of everyone being aligned as a company. So I did want to share that with you. And if you have questions offline, we can talk after too.
Awesome, thank you so much.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Deion Dorsett. I'm the president of the Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals, and I'm a proud Cadillac owner.
All right.
Hey.
Secondary question.
What you driving, dog? What you driving?
Cadillac. I volunteer as tribute. Primary question. Just about everyone that's in this room working for the Urban League and the movement in some type of way, and everyone I'm pretty certain is part of a team. I wanted you to kind of talk about the importance of developing a team. Like I know, John, you came up. I see this great camera guy. And I was watching him because he was just on it. I was like, wow. Can we talk about?
He's looking for some video work, Mendy.
Can we talk about what you're looking for when you're trying to develop a team and someone to entrust your brand with?
Sure, yeah, I'll touch on this and maybe you guys have some thoughts as well on the corporate level and communications level. It's been an interesting relationship that I've had with team building, and at this point, I think I'm the most effective that I've been as a result of working at Harlem Capital and being part of a team that kind of uplifts me. I'll say this, the optimal scenario in team building is to feel trusted. And I like to start by actually giving trust away immediately. And actually, now I'm gonna go deep here in the roots, but like Caribbean culture, just like you're automatically skeptical of folks. And I'm gonna be like, yo, you gotta be careful with that one. You gotta be, and it's like, there's a lot of actual seeds that were planted, and this is super common in communities of color, where we're inherently distrustful because we, imagine the worst, and rightfully so. We come in environments where things like that happen. But when I was made aware of that, and I started from a place of, hey, I'm gonna disproportionately give you the trust, and I'll leave it to you to erode it. And that actually did something really trippy for the team, because then, the moment Mendy came in, when we worked together, I'm not micromanaging the vlogs. I said, yo, this is you. You do this. Like, I trust your creative direction. That's why I'm bringing you in. And so when you're working with someone, first you have to trust their intention, right? So you have to feel good about that person. There's a lot that subjectivity will do for you in the hiring process. You feel good about that person, but when you bring them in, let's not get it twisted. You're bringing them in to do something that they do better than you. So leave them to do the damn job and give them that trust. And you'll start seeing that if you do that and also over communicate, the team starts working a lot better.
And I think one of the things I would say that teams are important because, to your point, you can't do it all. But also, you have to think of a team a bit more broader, especially in some of the places that you're not. So you need to respect people from a standpoint of, when I come in the office, I greet the janitor, the lady cleaning up, because she's here later than I am, and she hears all of the chatter that I miss because I'm on the move. I'm not even in the office today. So if you start to respect people, people will give you value that you didn't even ask for. And there's no possible way that you can run, to the lady's comment earlier, you can't work in corporate America, run 2 gyms, track people down, have a social life. It's just not possible. And look fabulous at all of it while doing it. So you have to rely on a team, look to your friends, have good conversation, and talk to people about what you're doing. I think the other nugget that someone told me not long ago is that nobody's going to steal your ideas. So you don't have to be stressed about, I can't tell anyone, I'm going to keep it hoarded. Well, how can you get help if nobody knows what you're trying to do, what you're doing? It's about, what is your pitch, what are your talking points that tell people enough about what you're trying to do, that get them engaged enough to see if they're right people to work with and be part of your crew. And if they're not, they don't have the inner personal secret sauce, but they know what you're doing. Because later, whether they're haters or not haters, they're all going to be advocates. They're all watching your content, whether they love you, John, or don't love you. They're watching you. Because they're keeping up with you, so they'll know what they need to be doing. And so I'll just leave you with that. Make sure you think broadly when you're thinking about who's your team.
That is fantastic perspective. Yeah.
And we want to be mindful of people's time. So the last lady, I think she has on a gray sweater. She'll be the last question. Is it, or a gray? I can't. Gray jacket, yes. So she'll be the last question. And let's kind of keep it quick with your questions. Next question.
Hi, my name is Asia Carter. I am the editor-in-chief of the Working Woman Wardrobe, and also I'm on the executive leadership board of the Milwaukee Urban League Young Professionals. So my question is, how do you, for a long time I have been known as a very good operator, operations and things like that, but I also went to school for fashion design, so I kind of had like a dual personal brand, and lately I've been wanting to move kind of merge them together, and I'm trying to figure out how to do the shift so that people can kind of correlate everything in me as one person and one entity. I'm not sure how to handle that, so what's some advice?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. I think it's a fantastic question. There's something that happens when in the business world, to Alexis's point about guardrails, you immediately only share like whom you are in that context, but like we're a holistic person, right? Like before I got into business, I love jazz and hip hop. Like a lot of you guys that maybe follow me know I drop a hip hop lyric in at least every one of my talks. Like, so I love hip hop. I'm in venture, but I'm in real estate and I'm in media, and it's really hard to put a finger on kind of what I do, but that's because early I made it a point that if this was gonna be a people game, then you'll never win if you're just connecting kind of on that analytical level, just right at the top tip of the iceberg. I wanted to go deep. And you doing what you do, I think the more opportunities you give folks to understand some more context about you, so you start coming to life just way beyond the profession. You're like, oh wow, she likes that pink dress. She's into earrings and this and that. And like the more color and context you offer, the more holistically someone is able to take you in, which is what builds that depth. It is what builds that emotional connection with someone. I have folks who will stop me on the street and be like, yo, let's talk about that new Nas album that just dropped. Like they happen to know that I love Nas because I share that tidbit, and it adds a little bit of color and you come to life in a bit of a different way than most folks who are just sticking to one thing. So don't be afraid about being multifaceted, multi-tentacled. And the answer about how to make the shift is you just have to introduce it. And you'll slowly figure out when you go too far in one end of the spectrum, you'll know because the resonance won't be there. But you'll also know when you're being too stiff. And so gradually play around with and put out a lot of content around the two, and over time you'll begin to kind of form that identity.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Deborah Anderson. I'm the president of the Urban League of Louisiana Young Professionals Greater New Orleans chapter. I go by a Black woman animator, and I feel like I've carved out a niche in my industry. At the end of the year, I started posting videos to my YouTube channel. I can use my expertise. I created a video about how they didn't need to make Princess Tiana light skin. I went viral for like a day and a half on my video on how I got my job in animation in South Korea. So I was wondering.
That's incredible. Yeah. Good for you.
How can I did that 7 years ago, and I still have people contacting me. But I was wondering, how can I go further with content and creating engagement? I'm always asking people in my videos for people to ask me questions, leave comments and stuff like that. But how can I craft my social media and my YouTube channel to create more organic conversation. I would like to ask John this question.
Yeah. Hey. And you have a tribe, right? I love that. I love it. I love it. You already have a tribe, you know, and like most people who have followers don't have a tribe, right? And so, yo, Mandy, you got to get that on the vlog, bro. Give her a close up. Give her a close up. We got to get this on the vlog, baby. Let's go. Yeah. Hey, you're already doing all the right things. You know, you're in a space, by the way, that's getting really hot. And I think, you know, just you being a black woman in that space, you're already going to naturally create things that people in that community aren't creating. So I think if you can actually lean into continuing to tell these stories, and, you know, you'll see these moments that pop. And when they do, go obsessively deep on every single person that shared, liked, commented, tagged you, whatever, and actually go follow up and one-to-one tag and then follow some of their followers. And like, it's that stuff that doesn't scale that gets you to scale. So you're on the right path, you're clearly crushing it, and I want to connect with you offline after this.
Well done, well done.
By the way, of Ohio. I wrote my question down so I don't ramble because I do that all the time. So, you talked about being about your brand and being your authentic self. A part of my brand and authenticity is being an African American in corporate America. As corporations continue to make hiring diverse talent a priority, what are some creative ways to challenge, educate, and stand up for your culture, people, color, as well as any other dimensions of difference when you hear something that's totally out of line or offensive, or how did you get your hair so curly, or you go in with faux dreads, and they're like, well, how did you do that? Stop asking me those questions without becoming the constantly offended black girl. Remaining professional or getting exhausted or completely dismissing that person.
Yeah, so I've
excellent
asked
question.
a number of interesting questions, and so you get to a place where it's how you answer them. So an example is, why are you wearing heels when you're already tall? And I respond, these are running shoes. So after a while, people stop asking you, you know, so there's a way to respond. You know, it's like, you don't have to be offended by everything. And things are offensive, but you don't have to be offended, because I still gotta be fabulous afterwards and go on a date, so I can't be mad about it. So you just find quick ways and witty ways so people, one, understand my personality, two, if they have any sense, they know not to ask me that question. Three, for hair, it's like, first of all, I don't make drastic changes. But if I do decide to make a change, I'll just say I added a piece or two, and we're not, and this is as I'm moving away from you. So
right.
This is not a circus, so we're not touching, teasing. I don't go to work and ask people about their personal stuff. So you also have to set boundaries, and shame on you for not, shame on me for not setting boundaries. But also it is age, with age comes wit and comes your presence and comes your tree that is rooted. And so now today, people can say flippant things that are meant to be, disrespectful, but I don't have to take them in as disrespectful, because that's not who I am. And if I do, because it happens so often, I just have to have the courage to say, hey, that's not appropriate. So the other thing that I've learned is that we also too are sitting in these rooms. People are saying, well, why are African Americans not getting hired? Or why are, men of color or women of color or Hispanics? I tell you what, we are sitting in these rooms where offensive things are being said and we're being quiet. We do not have the courage to stand up. And so one thing I will be clear about is, At this day and age, there's nothing that you're going to see at Cadillac that doesn't really resonate with the audience that hasn't been, so I can speak up about it. Now, if someone decides they want to make a different direction or they disagree, that's on another person, but the thing is, a lot of times we're in these rooms saying, They're like, what do you think about this? Does it resonate with the community? And you need to be saying no. And a lot of times people are saying yes. And so that's why corporations are on the runway with pieces that are highly offensive. I bet you if you look down the path, someone was in that room that looked like me or you or black or brown, overlooked it, did not have the courage, and so here it is today. And so, what I will say is no brand is going to be perfect. We don't come to work every day perfect and polished, but you also have the right as an employee, as a human being, not to be touched, not to be teased, not to be, asked a million questions and unfairly scrutinized for, any of your fashion choices. That's all I got.
Real quick too, I'll add to that too. I think it goes back to courage, like she said, and I think doing it in the appropriate way. I think at the end of the day, folks will look for you to erupt or come out of character, and they'll use that against you in the long run. So again, taking the time, if it's 24 hours, a 24-hour rule, whatever your rule is, and being able to have that conversation. I've had several times where I've had to do that and have the dialogue, and people are like, oh, I didn't know that, you're educating, because again, sometimes they're uncomfortable as well at the end of the day, especially again, I'll just use us walking in the room, the way she dresses, the way I dress, we make people uncomfortable.
Courage is very important, as Alexis said. And one more piece of advice that I've learned throughout the years is being prepared with the response and what it is that you want to say. If someone says, may I touch your hair? I don't allow people to touch my hair, or whatever the case may be, but just having the awareness and being prepared to give that answer in a political way.
We can talk offline too. I got a couple of one-liners for you. I'll get you straight.
You're funny.
My name is Abraham Robinson from the New York chapter, the Urban League Young Professionals.
New York, New York.
My question has to center around, I'm a partner in the financial services company, right? So, fix people's credit, get them out of debt, I qualify them so they can come get a Cadillac, right? So, I guess my question is, because my company is like so highly regulated, right? And we have, they give us social media templates and things to put up, and sometimes it can kind of, I understand why they do it, but I guess my question is, are there any apps or any tips that you would recommend as far as social media?
Yes.
Get your product out.
This is your guy.
To the masses, like
yeah.
It's nationwide, so I have clients nationwide.
Understood.
So I just feel like it's like I need to take it up a few notches.
Understood. I think you should be over-indexing on building your personal brand, and here's why. Because you may change from company to company to company, but you're going to be you your whole life. And so this is particularly relevant for professionals that work in structures underneath kind of parent companies, and you build your clientele. Precisely because you're in an industry that is naturally risk averse. And so, you have to understand where they're coming from. They're underwriting risk. They don't want you, talking a whole bunch of noise and, getting them in trouble. And so they set these guidelines because that's part of their process to grow their business. So you have to be mindful of that if you're going to play in that environment. If not, you start your own company. But if you want to play in that environment, I think separate from the guidelines that they set, it would behoove you today to start producing content around your own point of view. Because you as a black man in this industry and in this world have your own point of view. That's not nationwide, it's you, right? And if you can do a good job around building your own personal voice, then that goes with you throughout your entire career. For instance, I'm at Harlem Capital, but it's well known, I have a pretty carved out personal identity. People know who I is and what I do and how I roll because I still share content from my perspective. And I think that that's the remedy. When you go on someone's Twitter and it says views are my own, views are your own. You know what I'm saying? So build up your personal muscles around sharing your own thoughts.
Great question.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Neji Akune, and I'm the co-founder of Ilera Apothecary, an organic and vegan personal care line based in Detroit, Michigan.
Hey.
My question is for John. What are 3 main criteria that you look for in regards to investing, or as a VC, investing in a company, does it differ when you're early stage, rapid growth, or have been around for a long time?
Yep, so I touched on this earlier around not product market fit, but founder product fit. But if you want to get specific metrics, so one, look, you have to understand, venture, unlike in private equity, like I own a dental practice and a cafe and some real estate, and in those businesses, I'm getting cash flow every month. In venture, you don't get cash flow. The only time you ever make any money, ever, is when they, boom, right? So if I jumped into Uber as an angel, I didn't make any money until literally when they went public, right? And so reverse engineering the venture capitalist perspective will help the founder quite a bit, because okay, the majority of M&A, mergers and acquisitions, happen between the $150 to $200 million range. At that price point, that's when the majority of companies exit. So when I invest in you, I say, okay, great. This company's worth $5 million. We're putting in, she's raising $1 million. We're putting in $500,000. What's the revenue point that she has to get to before she becomes a candidate that's likely to be acquired? Okay, that revenue is that you have to be at 20 million, let's say. So let's say you come to me and you're making $250,000 in revenue. So then we look at, okay, how does she have the visibility to get to that first meaningful milestone? In our view, is that first $1 million. Like, what does she need with this capital that we give her? Can she get to the point where she's making $1 million? And then from there, it's, can she get to the point where she's making 10, right? And so, because we're after that M&A, right? We want our check to exit. So, there's a bunch of metrics and actually it's the founders that set the metrics. The best founders don't flip-flop based on VCs and their opinions, because, we'll meet you for 15 minutes, give you an opinion, everyone's got one, and then if you're flip-flopping, that founder doesn't have conviction. So you come to us and you say, yo, this is our North Star. We are impacting women of color in this space, like it or not, take it or leave it. This is our North Star. And when an investor feels that conviction, feels like you're gonna pop with or without us, you're a lot more likely to jump on board, right? And so just take that and then layer it in with the reality that whatever industry you're in, there's always comps. Businesses get acquired at X dollar amount, and they were usually making X amount in revenue. So if you can get good at that storytelling piece and helping us fill in the gaps and helping us understand how you're gonna get there, you're a lot more likely to get a check. Hope that helps.
Thank you. And then also, I do have samples, so anybody wants some? Thank you.
Thank you.
Last question of the day.
But not least. My name is Casanora Langley. I am the Policy and Procedures Chair for the Urban League of Professionals of Middle Tennessee and Nashville. So obviously we're all very interested in the information you are sharing with us, so we can use it to leverage our brands, gain capital for our businesses. So my question is, I don't believe that you start later than you're supposed to, but I do think information could be made available to people earlier. So I wonder if your organizations are doing anything to bring this information about branding and gaining capital to our youth and young people so that they can start their journeys towards developing their own businesses and launching their brands sooner than we are starting to.
Yes, I guess this is a Cadillac question. How do you listen?
No, that's a great question. I think on the corporate side, Daniel, myself, Alexis, we partner with a lot of different organizations and get started at a very young age. One of our big pillars is STEM. So again, lots of opportunities as we're building our future with electrification and autonomous vehicles. Lots of opportunity to get students learning about this stuff at an early age. And again, like I said, some of these key partnerships really help us connect. We partner with the Black Press, so NMPA, all 215 African-American owned papers. So we have engagements with them throughout the year. And again, that gets us to the African-American community specifically.
And piggybacking on that, we primarily in the past have done things at a national level, and in years recent, we started doing things at the local level. So all the partnerships that we are aligned with, we're starting to connect with their youth and get them thinking about, hey, entrepreneurship, becoming a dealer, being a good manager of your money. We're starting to do that at a local level. And so right now, our strategy is taking it in our key markets where we have a presence in, and then we'll build from there.
Also, go ahead, Alexis.
Yeah, I was going to say, also as a brand, what we try to do is partner with companies and initiatives and foundations that are already doing the good work. And so it's important that we don't try to go and start and build again from the foundation. And so we partner with our internal brands who are already partnering with companies and organizations and foundations that already have amazing initiatives, and then we help put money and resources behind it. And so for us, we find that's the quickest way to get to the masses, and then you can just cover more people in that way. So rather than Cadillac come and host an event like this, why not align with the young professionals that are already popping, that are already the age group, that are already engaged, we have the mindset, and why not start here versus us trying to do something standalone. And so that piece is important too. There's many great foundations and organizations that are doing great work, and what we're trying to do as Cadillac is make sure we're in the right place, in the right audiences, and then we get the right share of mind in that way, and just much more reach than we could do on our own. So partnerships are important.
So with that, right, if Cadillac is looking for, brands and companies and individuals that already have the reach, because they're not trying to recreate the wheel, they're in the business of cars, right? And they care about authentically communicating with folks, but as part of your marketing strategy, you're not going to be recreating the wheel every time. And so to your question about, so that's how Cadillac addresses the piece. And then for me, I'm so big on this, right? Like, I don't know about your hoods, but I walk around the hood in the Heights and the Bronx and Harlem, and they ain't reading the newspaper. Where are they spending 16 hours a day? Consuming peer-generated content. And so with Harlem Capital, like when I discovered like this power of generational wealth, and I realized that in our communities we don't think that way, I was like, yo, I want to be where our community is at. And it happens that right now, the most poppin' form is micro content. So every talk, we're doing this, snipping up longer form talks. Into every one of my talks, I get at least 40 pieces of content out of. At least. Tweets, quotes, photos, long form, and then little 60-second short form videos, IGTV, LinkedIn. I mean, I move absolutely everywhere. Right? And I'm incredibly passionate about that because you can't be what you can't see. So how is a kid growing up, how is Jerome coming up supposed to think that he can be Reginald F. Lewis, the black billionaire before Oprah and Bob Johnson? Virginia State. Yes, sir. Right? How is he supposed to know that he can be that unless he sees a real-time, modern depiction of that in his face all the time? You know what I mean? Yeah, no, and I hear you. And as you can see, I'm like speaking at you. So it's just that I get worked up about it. So, but then like look at the way that the ecosystem in the pipeline works, right? It takes individuals who are passionate about this work on the ground level, building it up to the point where you can attract the attention from a national partner. Now you're partnered. Now the message is, amplified, and then you work with the communication firm that helps you amplify even beyond that. So you can address this at any phase of the pipeline. It just depends where you are, and can you do the work at your level to get in the conversation.
And one final comment. I'll leave it alone. That's why it's so important for you all to be in the room and for us to be in the room, because we do have voices. And so a lot of times opportunities are not presented to communities because there's no one in the room advocating for those. And so for each of my partners, we're in these rooms saying, hey, what about this? What about that? So, as you guys are climbing your ladders in your corporate arenas or in your business arenas, be present and speak up. So that's all I got to say.
Wasn't today amazing? Let's hear it.
Thank you.